Hello, culture vultures and history hounds. I'm in my second home today, the UK, in lovely London. It's so sunny today. All my friends in the UK are telling me this is not the norm, but I'm so lucky. It reminds me a bit of Malta, but much cooler, which is great because things are about to get very hot today. Officially, I'm here to relax for the shopping, to take a break from guiding. That's the narrative I gave my wife. In reality, I'm here because I'm having a steamy affair. With history, of course. I'm here, number one, to visit the Greenwich Maritime Museum, of course. There is a pirate exhibition there. I'm specifically going there for this pirate exhibition. Of course. And number two, I'm hunting a gate. But not just any gate. I'm hunting St. John's Gate. Yes. The clue is in the name, St. John. Belonging to the same Knights of St. John. So why should I care about some old knights and their fancy gate drama? Because these are the same Knights of St. John, aka Il Cavalieri di Malta, aka the Knights of Malta. Yes, the same knights who build those incredible fortifications of monstrous defenses, which you will see on my island of Malta. The same military geniuses who turned my little rock into the coolest military fortress in the whole Mediterranean. Till our friends the British came and later on also turned Malta into the most important naval base in the whole Mediterranean and an impregnable fortress. Also, don't snitch, but I'm also meeting two ex-guests of mine who traveled to Malta from London, and they did a Valletta tour with me, my nightly secrets, and let's just say we kicked it off so well that they actually offered to give me a private tour themselves about the Templars in London. Oh yes, whilst my wife thinks I am buying her some handbag, I am plotting medieval mayhem. So, join me as I go to uncover the secrets of St. John's Gate in Clerkenwell to find out what's so special about this gate and also the connection between the Knights of St. John and lovely London. Whilst the Knights Templars, the more famous Knights Templars, they're hogging all the Hollywood movies, getting all the likes on Instagram and going viral on TikTok, their cousins, so to speak, the Knights of St. John, are just as powerful, even though they are so outshined. They are seen more like healers, healthcare guys, the hospitalers, not the finance fighting guys like the Templars. However, hovering in the shadows does have its benefits. As the saying goes, stay too close to the sun and you get burnt. Your wings get burnt, just like Icarus, just like the Templars get burnt, pun intended. However, the Knights of St. John, they played it smart, they were not touched, and actually they got a pretty good deal from the suppression of the Templars, because the Pope gifted the lands of the Templars all to the Knights of St. John. Imagine all those lands now belong to the Knights of St. John. They literally hit the lottery ticket with the Templars being destroyed. And life is great, until it isn't. Speaking of lands, I'm in Clerkenwell, right in the heart of London today. Back then, these lands, the Priory of the Order of St. John, as you can see, the 8-pointed cross just above you, well, they were a bit on the outskirts of the capital city back then. Lovely, isn't it? You see, the UK were always active crusaders. And the Order of St. John back then, they asked Henry II, yes, lots of Henrys in these episodes, they asked him to help them fight in the Holy Land. However, the king's counselors told him, forget about it, we've got our own problems here, forget about it. And just 2 years later, Jerusalem was lost to Saladin. Despite their setback in the Holy Lands, because as you know, Saladin, at the Battle of Hattin, he ordered that all Knights of St. John and the Templars are executed. Of course, he didn't want them coming back to fight him, so he decided to rid himself of these holy warriors. On the other hand, on the bright side of life, as you can see over here, in Clerkenwell, London, the Knights of St. John do pretty well over here. And despite being a religious order, the Knights of St. John decide to get themselves involved in local politics, knee-deep. Not always the best of ideas. Indeed, European kings begin to employ the heads of these various branches as ministers. Case in point, in 1380, an English Knight of St. John, hero of the Alexandria campaign and prior of the English branch, the Knight Fra Robert Hales, becomes King Richard II's treasurer. However, let's not all cry for joy for Fra Robert, because Fra Robert became more famous for the absolute disaster that is about to follow soon. Follow me, quickly. Being at war with France, the English decided, you know what we need more? More taxes. Spoiler alert. It didn't really go down that well. It was Fra Robert's job to collect the dreaded poll tax. Not rocket science there, of course. Not many peasants wanted to pay that extra poll tax. So they quickly started to call Fra Robert, "Hob the robber, hob 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 the robber." I think it's pretty cool, but I'm not sure Fra Robert would have agreed with me. And so, after more or less just 1 year in government, Fra Robert's tax collectors, with their hard-handed measures, provoke the famous 1381 Peasants' Revolt. And I think we better say some prayers for Clerkenwell and Fra Robert. You're about to find out why. With Fra Robert also being a Knight of St. John, apart from the treasurer, well, all of a sudden, the Knights Hospitallers are also game. Their lands are also target. Case in point, one of the most famous lands targeted by the peasants was the Cressing Temple, which, ironically, originally was the Templars' lands, which the Knights of St. John took over. Actually, it was given to them by the Pope. It was burnt, destroyed, and also the lands over here, Clerkenwell, was also destroyed and burned to the ground after, of course, they pillaged all the loot and everything of value the peasants could find. Thank you, Robert. However, burning Clerkenwell is not enough. The mob, they're out for blood. They're screaming, "Fra Robert," or probably more, "Hob the robber, hob the robber." And let's just say, whilst London Bridge is not going to be falling down anytime soon, Fra Robert's time and power is. After burning Clerkenwell, the mob rush to the Tower of London, where Fra Robert and the Archbishop of Canterbury are hiding right inside the White Tower. To be precise, inside the chapel of St. John the Evangelist, not St. John the Baptist. Wrong saint. He's not gonna help Fra Robert. Off we go for Fra Robert. Let's go. Let's cross the bridge. Come on, follow me. So Fra Robert and the Archbishop, they, like rats, try to sneak out from a door somewhere over there in front of you, somewhere in the Tower of London, that had access to the same River Thames. Although I think the rats would have had it better. Fra Robert's head is cut off and stuck on a pole. Just like the Archbishop, although I hope for Fra Robert it ended quicker. It took apparently eight strokes of a sword to chop off his head. By the way, Fra Robert was not the only Knight Hospitaller to get involved in politics and on the wrong side. As you can see over here, another prior of St. John was also executed during the War of the Roses. However, the Knights of St. John, once again, and as they always do, like the proverbial phoenix they rise out of the ashes. Until once again, danger lurks on the horizon. Never a dull day in the life of a Knight of St. John. So, Fra Robert is no more, but is it the end of the Knights of St. John in the UK? We'll find out on the next episode.